Good afternoon. I'm Vince Palmieri, President and founder of Asian Pacific Community Awareness and Commander of the Military Order of the Purple Heart. And I'm here this afternoon with Bob Olson, who is running for Assembly District 17. And before we begin, I want to welcome Bob home. He's a Vietnam and Desert Storm veteran, like I am, but not Desert Storm. So welcome home, Bob, and tell us a little bit about you and why you want to run for Assembly.
Well, I'm a vet. I have over 20 years service and been around the world. I enjoyed it. My dad was in the military for 33 years, so it was just a good thing that I did without even thinking about it. I joined and said, yeah, it's time. I enlisted at Clark Air Force Base. My officer that administered my oath of office was Lieutenant General Manner. When he was a lieutenant colonel, he was the one that planned and executed the raid on Sante to get the POWs back. So I have a very distinguished officer doing my enlistment. The funny thing was, my dad was there. He was a senior enlisted advisor, Chief Master Sergeant in the Air Force for him at 13th Air Force at Clark Air Base. So that's where I enlisted, which was unusual, but they made an exception, and I did that there. Spent my time around the world doing many different things. My last boss, I actually was with Norman Schwarzkopf. I'm in the background where I belong.
Oh, wow. One of our great generals.
Yeah, he was absolutely a tremendous man. When he got ready to retire MacDill, I was the one that escorted him around, making sure the physical. I have one of the last hand-signed books signed by him. After that, he had a stamp made, so he had a signature on it. But again, myself here, I moved to North Las Vegas, actually in 2010. I came up and went to work in the security business, and then I turned around and looked at what was going on here. I traveled. I spent a year and a half on the Indian Reservation at Pine Ridge. While I was up there, I met Joe Lombardo, and he was there about the U.S. government trying to take land from the Native Americans up there for the pipeline, the Keystone Pipeline. So he was up there doing a protest and that. So that's how I first met him. And Mr. Bundy was there, and so you got to meet all those people. But that was an experience and a half. Then I came to work for the VA for 5.5 years. And I was a ultrasound tech, did X-ray tech. I did everything in X-ray that you could do. And then one day, I got a little upset with the management of our department because of how they were treating our technicians. So the union had come to me and asked me to be a union member, and I said yeah. And I moved on to being a steward for our shop and represented our shop people in the X-ray. And then about a year and a half later, I ended up being asked to be the chief steward for AFGE, American Federation of Government Employees, Local 1224, which is the largest union in the federal government. And I became the chief steward there, working with Linda Ward Smith, and we went from about 1,500 people to, when I finally retired, we were at 2,200. So after that, I totally retired. Then all of a sudden, I got upset about the school board here in Las Vegas, and that's what started this. And Patricia and Garland Brinkley, I came to one of their town halls and asked me what I was going to do. I said I was going to run for the school board. And so, well, would you consider running for Assembly District 17? And I said, sure. And little did I know that this was going to be the adventure that I'm pursuing now. And I have found that we need a voice up in North Las Vegas that's very conservative, that meets the values of the people that are living here, and not feel like they're being left out and that you don't have a voice.
So as an assemblyman, what's your platform going to be?
Basically, the first thing I'm going to deal with, and this is something that I feel important, is we got to change the education system here in Nevada. We have not gone above 45 since I've been here, and I'm talking about 2008 is actually when I first came into the area. So that's going to be the first thing, is build that education ranking up. And how we do that is we get rid of all the superfluous stuff that's in the curriculums, get back to a very basic one: reading, writing, arithmetic, cursive writing, how to write cursively, how to read it. Also with that, have a mandatory civics class at the 9th grade level. Those are key items, because if you cannot read cursive, you can't write it, you can now understand what's in the Constitution, Bill of Rights, our major documents of this country, which we founded this country on. If you don't know what's in there, how are you going to know what to do? Again, that's a lost art. Most of the people today, they have a hard time even reading cursive writing. The other thing is, with the reading, writing, and arithmetic, I think as a school district, we need to get back to the basics. And reading is going to be one of those things. I have a young man in my district that is a freshman. I think he's now a sophomore. When I first talked to him, he was a freshman. Could not read past the 9th grade level. So the key issue is getting our children into reading. That starts very early. By the 3rd grade, you need to be able to read and have that, and continue to encourage the kids to read. Now, for me, I was very fortunate. As I went through the school system, I was in the military school system as well as the public communities. And I had some very unique teachers. It's very seldom that you can remember certain teachers, but I have 2 of them very distinctly. One was Mr. Greist. He was a history teacher in the 7th grade. And he had a very unique way of teaching. And it started me on this adventure of going back and learning our history, because we ended up having a war between the states on the floor. We drew the map and talked about all the battles.
That's wild.
So it was a different approach, and I really liked that. The other gentleman I had, he actually was in World War II. Both of these gentlemen were in World War II, but Mr. Scott is the other one. He flew the hump. He actually even pushed me even farther into history. We talked very much into that. Plus, I grew up in the Far East, so I know the history of that area, the Pacific. And that's because of that started my college education towards history, and specifically into World War II, Japan, the Philippines, all the areas. These are countries I lived in as a kid, and now I get to visit them and learn about the history of them. But I started my college career, first classes I ever took was at University of Philippines. I did not have an American teacher that taught me U.S. history.
Wow. From
a Filipino point of view. And I learned tremendous amount of history about the Philippines when MacArthur was there as the governor, and then the setting up of the government, Philippine government that was in exile during World War II, the Japanese, what they did, and then when they became a territory. So along with that, being in Formosa or Taiwan, I learned that. I actually know about Chiang Kai-shek. I saw him when I was a kid. Loved that. I've been to the Philippines, Okinawa. I was there. I dived, learned how to dive from a Navy SEAL there, and we dived on wrecks from World War II on the Battle of Okinawa, and traveled the island and learned the history of that island and what the Marines did, what the Army did, and saw that. Been to Guam. That's where my sister was born. I was there. I've been to Midway. You name them, major islands in that I lived at, so I know that. I used to live on Guam. I lived in a Quonset hut, and that was an interesting experience. But I love history. I love getting people that way. But you got to get people interested. You got to be creative. And to do that, we've got to get back to the basics. And kids, when they start to read, then their mind opens up. My worldview is not of where I grew up. I spent more time out overseas, outside the United States. So the United States is a very unusual country to me, because I didn't grow up all the time here. But again, I recognize what we do. So the reading was what got me into those things. And I think we need to test all the way through. So when our kids graduate from high school, they can read at 12th grade level or above. Also, with the curriculums we do, not everybody's going to go to college. So we got to develop an alternative for those kids. There's people that want to be a beautician. There's people that want to go into pipe fitting, those type of things. So we need to have those technical schools there as well.
Right, that's what I was going to ask you, because when I was growing up, we called them back then vocational high schools.
Vocational.
Some of my friends went to aviation high schools, learned how to become a mechanic to fix planes and things of that nature, graphic arts, and we had shop classes.
Yes.
We learned woodworking, we learned metalworking, we learned how to do things with our hands, which I think is very good.
I think that's one of the things too, and you know, along with that, I think we should introduce that back in, because we also had auto mechanics.
Yes.
We had drafting. I love drafting. That was one of the things, if I could have done as a kid and figured out how to become an engineer, that's where I got my start, was in high school, or actually junior high, And it was very fortunate because it broadened my career, my things and what I wanted to do.
So I like your main platform about education because that's the foundation of everything.
Right.
Without a good education, and unfortunately right now they're destroying our education
Yes, they are.
system. And like a gentleman asked here today about how can we get rid of the Federal Bureau of Education or whatever they call it these days and put education back in the states, because kids learning in New York are different from kids learning in California.
Yes.
And that's the way the education should be, state by state.
Each state should have the right to determine their education. I think Nevada is one of those states that we need to do that. That starts with me as an assemblyman introducing bills to say, hey, look, this is the curriculum we want to teach in the state. Teach the history of Nevada, because we have a unique history. We hold a very unique place in history in this state. So teach the kids to know that.
And
But
a
also,
lot of people, I'm sorry, and a lot of people don't know that the Chinese were a part of the history
Yes.
of Nevada. And
Yes.
I know that because I lived in China for over 14 years.
Yeah.
So like you in a way, I have seen the differences. And I've always said, I had an education company in China. I've always said, if we can combine some of the things that they do in school in China with our way of teaching, we'd have the best students in the entire world.
and that's the one thing is we have to look at. Now, the teachers have to encourage, and they have to be active in participating as well as the students, but also the parents need to be involved. That's the other thing. The other platform and thing that I deal with in this campaign is going to be the veterans. Veterans are very important to me because I am a vet. I want to see the state invest more in our veterans programs. We need at least 3, if not 4 more, I call them old soldiers' homes because that's how I grew up with them. And that take care of our veterans, long-term care. We need 4 of those. We've only got 2 in the state, but we need more because our veterans here in just Las Vegas alone is over 200 and some thousand. And not only just the male vets, but also the female. How do you tell a female vet from a male vet? The male vet wears a baseball cap. The female does not.
Yes.
So they're at a disadvantage. But my concern is, how do we make it better for females? The VA is 9 years behind. The last survey they did anything on concerning with female vets was 9 years ago, and 64% of the people were asked the question, female vets in particular, 64% of them said they want their own clinic, their own female doctors to handle the problems from OBGYN until sexual trauma in the military. And we need to force that. Now, from a state issue, I can do some things, but also I can be a voice to the national and senators, congressmen, and push that issue as well, which I plan on doing. Now, along with that, women are becoming, we have I think it was 2 million female veterans that are being ignored. Well, we need to start recognizing them, start giving our medical care to that. Our forces are changing. We've seen that change from when I first came in. It was 95% male, 5% female. It's gone even farther the other way now, where we have more females than we do males at times. But again, we have to recognize those vets, make sure we service them. I'm also, I have 5.5 years experience in the union fighting the VA administration at this VA hospital here. And it's never been personal. It's always been professional. Do what's best for the vets.
Exactly.
And one of the things we have done is we started a grassroots movement that went to Congress. We sent it to every one of our congressional people. It's called 7422. We had 750 people sign petitions to get Title 38 removed from the VA. If we do that, we can recruit doctors, we can recruit our nurses, pharmacists.
Can you tell our viewers what is Title 38?
Title 38 covers our professional staff in the VA. It's doctors, physicians, pharmacists, nurses, dentists, and they are hindered on negotiating a contract. You sign for a certain amount of money, but here's the thing, your salary cannot go above the President of the United States. So when I'm sitting there looking at what the President of the United States gets paid, that's as high as the doctor, you can't recruit. We have to give them the opportunity to do that. We have to, be able to allow them to make more money, because when you're competing out on the outside, you're talking to like a radiologist makes $600,000 easily on the outside. He can only make $350,000, $400,000 in the VA. We can't recruit. Not McDonough right now, who's the head of the VA, but the last one we had went before Congress and said, we need to pay our people and we need to have good people in there.
Right.
And the only way we're going to get that is paying them. So I've been very fortunate. I'm a bit of a radical. I've pushed the pay raise for our x-ray techs. They're the second highest x-ray techs in this valley. They had a problem recruiting. Well, they don't now because we got them a 69% pay raise across the board. The ultrasound techs, that's what started this. We tried to get that, but we had a problem because the regulations that the VA has in place, you can't get them a pay raise. So when I quit and retired totally from the VA system, it opened the door. We got them a pay raise. So knowing how the system works and knowing who to go talk to and how to do that is key to our veterans.
Well, I don't want to cut you short, but this is a very interesting topic, and I'd like to know more about your experiences overseas.
Mhm.
So I'd like to bring you back.
Yes, sir.
And in closing, give our viewers one last message.
The message that I have is that if you want a better life in Nevada, you have a choice. You can stay with what we have in that it has been in the state assembly and the state senate that have done nothing for the last 12 years. Or you can bring a new voice in, new ideas, and have a better life. My whole purpose for running for the office of Assembly District 17 is to give you a better life. You will see the sign around the area of North Las Vegas. This is going to be the sign you see. This is your choice. This is who you need to vote for. And I have the answers, and I will take care of the people of North Las Vegas.
Thank you, Bob.
Yep.
It's a pleasure talking to you. Have a great day.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Vince.